Is Night Swim really that bad? Well, it's January, also known as
the place where movies go to die.
And we got our first horror movie of the bunch in Night Swim. I can't say I was really excited for this movie, but I went to go see it nonetheless because I love horror movies and it's January, so I'm really grasping at straws to watch something, and there's just not a lot to offer, so I take what I can get. And the response for this movie, unsurprisingly, has been very bad.
That's unfortunate.
But when you look at the premise of this movie, there's a lot to work with here, kind of playing into the idea of childhood fears being fully realized and coming to life in a strange way with this swimming pool that apparently is haunted in some capacity. You give it a good cast, it's produced by Blumhouse, and it's written and directed by a guy who seems very passionate about horror and the art form in general. I gotta say though, I was pretty middle of the road with this movie, right down the middle. I didn't love it, I didn't hate it. I don't think it's abysmal, but it also had plenty of issues. And honestly, for about the first 2/3 of the movie, I was kind of on board. I feel like a lot of what they do with the visual flair and playing into the eeriness of this pool, especially in the nighttime sequences where they're swimming and the pool lights flicker on and off, it adds for a lot of interesting imagery, and there are a few genuinely good scares in the mix. I will say this movie is called Night Swim, but there were equally as many scenes to where they were swimming in the day. I call that false marketing. I also must add that the performances were not bad here. They were actually pretty decent, all things considered. I mean, Wyatt Russell, Carrie Condon, neither of which have business being in a movie like this, but nonetheless, they did good with what they were given. I didn't feel like any of the performances were phoned in or weak to an extent. In fact, there were moments to where they really went for it. Wyatt Russell in particular, the guy's just great at going crazy. And when they play into the family core dynamics of the movie, it's strong. It stands out, and it has enough things that I could take away from it that I actually did enjoy. There are moments where you actually feel tension, where you're actually concerned and invested in these characters. It also gives an interesting look at the internal battle one might go through when losing the thing or things that gave them a feeling of purpose or meaning, and the lengths that they would go to relive that feeling. But man, that third act, this movie just sank. See what I did there? Sank, because it's called Night Swim. They swim in water, and you can, if you don't swim, you drown, you sink, you go under.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
It seemed like everything that worked about the first 2/3 they completely abandoned, and it turned into this absolute hysterical, over-dramatic, bombastic fright fest with every single stereotype you can think of from this type of movie. So many jump scares that just didn't work, and a section in time to where there's that character that appears just to give the exposition that goes on for about 15 minutes, and after that we know everything we need to know about the movie, which sucks because another thing that worked about this movie is the attention to detail, the subtlety, but the way that even the smallest little things that were introduced earlier on always came back for some purpose later in the film. When they focused more on the show don't tell approach, it was a lot more effective than just having a random character come in simply for the purpose of explaining everything, giving a backstory behind this entity and all of the mythological bullcrap. It also seems like the dialogue took a hit too. Like, to be honest, it did not feel like a real human being wrote some of the things that were coming out of these characters' mouths. Marco? You were supposed to say Polo. And my gosh, it has one of the stupidest endings. Like, I'm sure they had a writer's room for this movie, right? Like, I'm sure they sat down with a bunch of different creatives and tried to form this plot effectively, or at least the writer and director of the movie, Bryce McGuire, sent in a draft. I'm sure they had to look that over, right? And they still went with that?
Okay.
It just sucks because there was so much potential for this to be good, at least decent. I mean, come on, it's January. You can't be asking for that much. But like I said, it wasn't offensive. It wasn't the worst thing I had ever seen. It wasn't The Turning or One Missed Call or even Megan. I don't want to hear it in the comments. I didn't like Megan. Deal with it. It makes sense that this movie was released in January because it obviously does not have the substance and the quality to be released any other time of the year. It's not a great movie by any means. But at the same time, I still go into every movie hoping that it's serviceable, hoping that I can walk away and take something from it, that I can at least enjoy my time. And I enjoyed about 50% of my time here, which is not bad. I mean, it's not good, but it's not bad. So with all that being said, I'm gonna have to give Night Swim a 5 out of 10. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching this review. I really appreciate it. It's January. The beginning is always rough, but it only goes up from here, right? Follow me on Letterboxd if you want to keep up with every movie that I watch. I typically log all the movies, new and old, that I watch on there, as well as keep an updated list of the 2024 releases that I've seen this year. Keep up with my movie watching history. Check me out over there. Also, if you would, make sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe if you haven't already. And until next time, I'm going to go work on the script for the movie about my biggest childhood fear, ceiling fans.
That's unfortunate.